Welcome back. Now, schools closed last week Friday. Many children are now looking forward to the holiday break. While this is a time for rest and fun, it also comes with new responsibilities for parents, for caregivers, and for our communities at large to ensure the safety, the well-being, and the emotional growth of our young ones. Joining us today is Lloyd Sikeba, a leadership trainer and motivational speaker. Good morning, Lloyd, and welcome back to Good Morning Namibia.
Thank you very much, Denver. Good morning.
How have you been holding up?
Can't complain. I've been holding up quite well.
Yes.
Yes.
Happy to hear that. I'm very happy to have you.
Most definitely.
The holidays are here. It's a time of great excitement for some, but also a daunting moment for others. Speak to us about what it is that we need to take note of from the onset, now that the holidays are with us.
I think from the onset, now that the holidays are upon us, it's also very important. December is mostly a time of reflection because now you're headed into a new year. After this last month, it's all more of like, what did I do right and what didn't I do right and what can I improve on and what can I work on? Now, bringing it in terms of school closing, it's also very important to understand that what did I miss with my kids, with my children, that I need to learn about them within this time that we're together, rather than just ignore the fact that, you know what, they're here, let them have fun, or let me send them off. You know, many times kids are mostly in the proximities of their teachers 24/7, from 8 to 5 or from 8 to 1 o'clock, 6 to 1 o'clock. And as parents, we have that limited time. Now, there's also that time for you to say that, okay, let me take up that mantle and understand my child more better.
So it also calls for introspection on the part of the parent.
Yeah.
The reality is, though, that many parents are battling to make ends meet and have to work at a time when year-end fatigue may have kicked in and they may have nowhere to send the children to. How does such a parent navigate such tricky moments?
Now, navigating that, first of all, is quite tricky and it's very hard. The key component out there is balance. Because as a parent out there, you need to understand as to how do you balance the dynamics of work and also paying attention to your kids. Now, you might have, should I say, neighbors? We live in a village. You know, it takes a village to raise a child. So your neighbors, your friends, your colleagues, those that might, or even relatives that might have spare time, you know, can also be in the lookout to see what your kids are doing during the festive season, or where you can drop them by, where you are almost close every single time. You know, rather than you just saying that, you know what, I'm busy, I can't make it. But if you make effort to include them in your schedule, that is a different aspect. Because many of the times we just say that, you know what, I'm busy, but have you placed in an effort to say that, okay, what if I just say that lunch hour that I usually sit in the office, what about if that lunch hour I can just meet my children or just meet the kids and just even have a normal conversation or just a reading session, then I get back to work.
Those are very valuable tips. Our young ones are also very vulnerable. And if we have regard to their physical and emotional well-being and safety, it could be that they land in the hands of a predator. How do I ensure that my children are not subjected to sexual predators, whether it's in the family context, whether it's a neighbor, whether it's society at large?
Now, the first very important thing is observation. You know, observation. I want to start first with the concept of observation, because as a parent, the fact that your kids are back, you need to observe as to the first few days. You need to observe as to what is their behavior like. Do they like going out more often? Do they like staying indoors? Do they like perhaps maybe being on their gadgets for quite a long time? Now, once you observe that, you then communicate from a standpoint of knowledge, knowing as to what is really taking up their attention. Now, when it comes to predators, this is where communication is then established with the children and say that, please do tell me anything that might happen, whether it's something that affects you in a good way or a negative way. Tell me how your day was. When you come back home, can we have that session of like, how was your day? What did you eat? What did the dogs do? What were they barking today and all that? It seems as simple as it is, but that's a form of communication to allow the children or the child to also speak up. Another point of view is also observing where the kids or the children are playing. Is the neighborhood safe? The environment where they're playing? And also ensuring that if there should be supervision of an adult or a guardian that you know. Because many of the times kids go unsupervised, they go out and have fun outside, and henceforth this is where you get to see that it's either they get lost or it's either someone picks them out, and or all these criminal activities happen because the spaces that we are allowing them to go into, it's unfamiliar to ourselves. So I always say that before you before you even allow the child to step outside, ask yourself as a parent, do you know where they're going to? You know, I remember growing up, my parents would always ensure that I'm going to a place where they know that, you know what, I know whose parents my child is going to play with, the next kid, or in which location. Or if they are in the street, my child knows the road regulation, the road traffic rules and whatnot, what happens when you see a car. And not only that, also communicating curfew. Because despite how the place might be safe, it might be your own neighborhood, your own street. If there is no curfew established, this kid might go wandering until late at night. What happens late at night is very tricky to also try and manage.
The irony is that very often the sexual predator may be in your own house,
Yes.
maybe in your own bedroom. So it's also difficult to navigate that aspect. But speaking about the time that children now have at their disposal, how do I ensure as a caregiver that they are engaged not only generally but in a specific and meaningful way?
Now, I think to touch on that, before I get to that, to just touch on the predator aspect, is also to observe your child's behavior. How are they behaving according to certain, in line with certain people in the household? Because it will be different when you see that, no, my child is projecting a different energy from this individual, relative. Is there something that I need to intervene? This is where now, a mindset of a parent, you need to then sit with the parent and the child also on separate occasions, like, hey, is there something that makes my child cringe when you're around? Do you beat my kid, or perhaps maybe do you scold them? Or do you do things that I'm not quite aware of? It's also same time also you also sit with your child and say that, hey, how is home? Like, is everyone fine? Is Auntie Who treating you well? Is Uncle Who treating you well? And what is who doing whenever I'm gone? That creates that bond, because you now get to hear the story in order for you to hear what's really happening. Now, in terms of parents also coming in play, to your question now, coming in play to their kids, it's also very important to participate, with the kids. The aspect, things such as reading, reading with your children, because in as much as it's holiday, we need to actively be involved in their learning process and also their education process, so that we read together. We also have times of rest, encouraging rest and saying that, you know what, it's time to sleep now. Can we rest? It's time to work now. Can we do this? It's time for cleaning. Can we do cleaning together? Because now that brings in the bond of, like, we're not doing it all alone, but we're doing it in unity as a family or as a unit. And those are the memories they remember most of the time.
What about older children? We often hear, increasingly so, that parents struggle to cope with teenagers who are defiant, who have no interest and desire to cooperate or collaborate. How does one deal with that?
Now, it becomes very tricky, especially when it comes to operating with teenagers. I always say that with teenagers, always have always have straight communications. More like I said, like, listen, this is the stance point that we're at. And also having curfews, especially with teenagers, because as teenagers, more like they would bypass that and they're like, hey, listen, I'm going out to my friends. But then also you need to ensure that there's a time they come home. And also in terms of ensuring that there's that bond, the communication aspect needs to be strong. But not just to communicate, but to make them understand, why is it important to have family time? Why is it important for us to come at the dinner table and sit and eat, and eat and actually have a normal conversation and catch up? I know it's not going to be an easy thing, but it's always better to try. It's always better to try. And also encouraging, when it comes to teenagers, very important to encourage more of like a win-win situation. Teenagers more of like want to understand as to what is in it for me. I have a younger sibling whereby she's always like, what is in it for me? So the moment you present that, okay, you do this, then this, when you want to do something, we can then try and navigate around it in a positive manner, or I can even drop you where you're headed to. But if we don't try and correlate or sort of like understand each other, it's going to be very hard to move forward.
I see an increase of pleas by parents, particularly single parents, saying that they've got no idea how to cope with this teenage child. The child drinks, the child uses substances, the child has a boyfriend or a girlfriend, and the child is just defiant despite the rules that are in place in the household. How does such a parent deal with that?
Now, that's a very intense one, because now you, as a parent, you find yourself in a corner where, as in, you do not know what to do. But I always say that it's not that you do not know what to do, but it's the place of help that is missing. Now, what does this place of help look like? Number one is getting a third party involved, either bringing in either uncles or someone relatively someone within, or a sibling or another relative to also stay with, to help guide them with, or maybe sending the kids for holiday, for holiday where they can meet with other relatives, because many times single parents can also learn from actually putting their children in an environment where other kids are also finding themselves, to understand as to what really is life. What really is life? How can you coexist? What does respect mean? But in a sense whereby maybe as a parent, you're more of like, okay, my child's safety is at high risk. I don't want to put them in a space whereby they feel judged, they might be hurt, or they might be questioned where their father is, or why I'm only the mother. Communication still comes back as an establishment. Communicating as to where is your standpoint and why you stand at that point. It's more like you're making your kid understand that, listen, I'm raising you, and this affects me in this manner. When you're not home, I think about where you are and what might be happening to you. And it's a cruel world out there. We see car accidents, we see kidnaps, we see kids being raped, and this affects me in this manner. And it will affect me in this manner mentally, and also even going back to work. I would not focus. So how this affects me comes back to your well-being. The things that I would help provide for you might sort of like lose it. And it affects everything. And I'm also human. I might also pass away due to stroke or stress. And would you want, you see, that's where the coin is now changing. Would you want to be, an orphan? And are you ready for such? And also explaining of the current pleasures. Like, look, this is just now. I want you to establish yourself in a proper manner. And after that, you'll understand where I'm coming from.
How do I teach my child how to navigate the dangers outside of the home environment, whether it's a toddler playing outside in the yard, whether it's an older child playing street soccer, or whether it's a teenager going to a club?
Now, when it comes to that, in terms of teaching, it's always very important to speak about around aspects of strangers. If you don't know the person, we always say that if you don't know the uncle, don't go with that uncle. You must ask auntie or your brother who is at that place. Auntie or brother is always, it's always relatively to our neighbors, even a sibling that they went there, or the friends, because now those are your eyes on site where your kids are playing, especially when it comes to street soccer. We were always taught that, you play soccer, you want to go anywhere, you need to consult auntie who, she's in that house. If you don't get to tell her, then you're going to get into trouble. And when it comes to toddlers also, especially outside, they're supposed to know the rules of the road, when a car is upcoming in a fast speed. Because I know this is a time where, as young boys, we love street soccer. We'd play in the street, or girls playing amagoose and all this, jumping rope. It's very, very important to know that, okay, when a car is approaching, what do we do? Do we get out of the road? If a car is approaching asking for me, I must go there with my friends, or I must go there with the people that I'm with to the car.
Or with my pepper spray.
If you have access to a pepper spray, then go with it, because you might not know if you might be dragged into a car. And also not to just be easily persuaded to go with a stranger in a car. I know it's always fun. You also that, no, we're going to play soccer at the next village, or the next stop in the next street, get in the car, let's go. Always go back and report and inform. When it comes to still in terms of, let's say, safety-wise, of the environment, always ensure that the kids know the environment they're at. By that, I mean, take them around, especially in times like this. Let's say your kids are now, they come back to the city, or they come to the city for holiday. Help them know the environment they're in. Where is what corner, which corner, what happens in town and whatnot, so that they don't get lost. Sometimes it's not that something really happened, but it's because they did not know the environment of the space. So once they are familiar with the space, they know how to behave. And also individual phases that they should be on their alert, and also an emergency number. Back in the days, I remember some kids would have tags off, a cell phone number of their parents, or a necklace, just in case if they find themselves in a place whereby they are not quite sure of, and parents can call. And also, as a community, it's also partially our responsibility to ensure that if we see that there's a child moving in a space and the kid looks confused or lost, we need to see how do we call the law enforcement, or to seek guidance to find their parents, rather than actually leaving that and then they get in trouble or something bad happens.
What activities would you recommend that would capacitate a child's growth, that would capacitate a child's resilience?
Now, in terms of that, it's reading. It's also active engaging in activities that sort of like it increases their knowledge. You know, it doesn't mean that when I say reading, we should take back the child to the books and say, oh, you need to go in the court and read. No, it's small things when you walk with kids in town and say, what's that? And then when they're reading it, that's indirectly it's more of like stimulating their brain cells, just a memory reminder. And also when you come back home, activities that you play as a family, it might be mathematics, and whereby you say, okay, no, count how many eggs are there and then bring them in here and all this. That helps build, that is the stimulation of their brain. And another aspect is also rest. Is also rest. That I keep on emphasizing on that because
it's important.
Many of the times they don't rest because they've been playing the whole day, and then they come back at home, they're on their cell phones or gadgets, they want to watch TVs and whatnot, and it affects everything. And also a third component that I'd like to speak on is be actively involved. You know, do things together. Do things together in a sense whereby there's a theory, monkey see, monkey do. What they see you do, they also do. You know, some of the things it's more of like, I saw my parents doing this growing up or during the holiday season. Henceforth, it's also what I do.
Do you perhaps have a message for absent parents, absent fathers?
In terms of absent parents, absent fathers, I think I would say that it's never too late to consult or to engage with your child. You know, we shouldn't be ignorant of the mere fact that somewhere out there you have a kid, you have a child who also is growing up. Yes, they are also thinking as to where is my father, where is my mother, why did they leave me to such a stance? And as a parent, you might feel the guilt. But I always say that it's better to know and to speak to your child and to have that guilt that I wish I could have been close. And sometimes the realization of kids or our children only happens when a certain stage happens in their life. There's a milestone. That's when, as parents, we appear, and then it's like, where have you been?
Yes, and that milestone may be when the child starts earning their own salary.
Yes.
Yeah. Any final thoughts before we let you go, Lloyd?
I think I'll just say, within this festive season, I'd like to encourage everyone, whether you're a parent or not a parent, as long as you are an adult, please be an eagle eye for the children out there. Because what happens to someone's child does not mean that it shouldn't affect you, because you do not know how things operate. You know, it might be you next time. But also, we're not wishing that. We're just saying that let's be, brethren keepers to each and everyone in our society, and also to the kids out there listening. Let's not be too hard on our parents. You know, there's NDF fatigue now. You're also trying to end them as well in the stress.
Thank you, Lloyd.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time, and thank you for sharing your precious insights so generously and altruistically. We appreciate you.
Thank you very much.